And that premise then leads to the second half of the equation. Why was it necessary for Christ to be fully God in order to atone for man's sin? In the sermon last week, it was altogether established that Jesus Christ is fully God. Of this and understanding what we went over, it is perfectly clear to any who are simply willing to check. But why was this necessary? The answer follows logically with what we just deduced. A man with sin could not atone for the sins of another. Rather, he too would need atonement. But the Bible, both implicitly and explicitly, teaches that man has inherited sin. The sin of Adam transfers to all of Adam's seed. That is stated explicitly by David in the 51st Psalm. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin my mother conceived me. It is also taught explicitly by Paul. Therefore, just as through one man sin entered the world, that is Adam. All of us have Adam as our father, right? And death through sin, and thus death spread to all men because all sinned. For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed where there is no law. So sin entered through Adam, and all are in Adam. But what about Aaron the high priest? When he and his sons were ordained, didn't the sacrifice for their sins make them sinless before God? Couldn't Aaron just have taken one of his 4 sons, sacrificed him, and been done with all of the sin of the world from that point on? Their ordination is detailed in Leviticus chapter 8. In that ordination, they are clearly presented as having sacrificed for their own sins. The law was established, and the men who were ordained as priests brought a sacrifice for their sins. This would then make them acceptable to sacrifice for the people of Israel. Once their sins were dealt with, why could they not be an acceptable atonement for the sins of the people? We've already gone through it. The answer is the same as for the people. The blood of bulls and goats can never take away sin. The proof of this is found in the verse which immediately followed God's acceptance of the Levitical priesthood, which was in Leviticus 9, verse 24. What happened is the glory of the Lord appeared, and he went down and he approved of the sacrifice by consuming it right there in front of all of the people, and the people were just giving God the glory. So he accepted the Mosaic sacrifices as his way of having propitiation between him and his people, right? The very next verse, it says, Then Nadav and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, each took his censer and put fire in it, put incense on it, and offered profane fire before the Lord, which he had not commanded them. So fire went out from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Nadav and Abihu were not made perfect, nor did they remain perfect. Instead, they died in sin. At the end of that chapter, Moses became angry with Aaron and his remaining 2 sons because they did not eat the sin offering of the people, and which was required under the law so that they could bear the guilt of the congregation, which is what Christ does for us, right? Aaron's reply to him was, if I had eaten the sin offering today, would it have been accepted in the sight of the Lord? The answer to his question is obvious. No. If the sin offering and the burnt offerings, which were intended to take care of the sins of the priests before they tended to the sins of the congregation, were tainted by what occurred, thus meaning they, even the priests, were also tainted, then how could they take on the sin of the people in order to purify them? Aaron's logic was impeccable, and it revealed right at the very beginning of the law how vastly inferior this priesthood is to that of Christ. Infinitely so.